We are hopefully, Lord willing, finally back at it. Hello, ladies and gents, once again, returning with another episode of Talk Gaming. I'm sorry it's been so long. It's been like a week and a half, maybe-ish, since our last episode of Talk Gaming. It's been quite the journey. It's been quite the journey. We tried to do this episode actually like twice. And both times it was delayed due to technical reasons. Just we'd start it and then stuff would just not work. I previously was using XSplit, which I enjoyed and I thought was a pretty good app for all of these things, and I enjoyed it. I thought it worked pretty well, but it was causing a ton of issues once we changed around the audio system. So of course we got a new microphone, we got new speakers, we got a new audio interface, we got a bunch of new stuff that in theory was supposed to improve the overall experience, but in general it just made everything more complicated, and XSplit seemingly couldn't handle it, which is truly unfortunate because that's the one I had to pay for. So instead, now we are working with OBS, the good old tried and true to open source program for live streaming. So far, it seems to be working just fine. Let me know if there's any issues with it, but I mean, it seems to be working. What's up, Gaff? Glad to have you here. I mean, there's a couple hiccups here and there that we're trying to sort out, such as the chat. I can't get the chat to show up transparently like we had on the previous streams, just because it'll take some plugin that I've got to hunt down. I tried using Streamlabs, but it doesn't quite work with scheduled events. So just in general, it gets a little more complicated. But in general, I'm pretty happy to be here. We're glad. We're partying. We're having a good time. I'm getting a phone call. I'm sorry. Whoever's calling me that I'm not picking up, but that's because I'm entertaining. I'm putting this first. I'm here. Glad to have that here. Yes. Who we got here? We got Neat. We got Gaffad. We got Sketchy. We got Howler's Moon. The Sports Wrecking GR. Valiant. Yeah. Glad that you can make it to a stream. Farouk Isa, I love you, Luke. Glad to have you here. Thanks for coming out. I am excited. We got some fun things to talk about. Bobby Brown, Fortnite. Yeah, you can never go wrong with Fortnite. We got some fun stuff to run through. And one of the most significant things that will happen today at some point is we will pass 50,000 subscribers on the channel, which is mind-blowing. Now I'm working on some sort of celebration. We're probably going to throw like a party and record it, and like we'll do something like that, a little larger scale to celebrate 50,000, but it kind of snuck up. My projections put it out by another week or two, so I did not expect the Red Dead Redemption critique to do quite as well as it did. I'm very thankful for that, so thank you everyone who watched it and supported me through that. But the cost of that is that I got kind of taken off guard by how successful it's been. So we've gotten a lot of new viewers coming in from that, and I'm just glad to have you all here, period. So if you've never watched an episode of Talk Gaming, welcome. We're going to talk about some stuff. We're going to run through some gaming news, some gaming discussions, and as always, because this is a live show, we try to converse a lot more and get much more personal. Now, we're also, as a result of all of the technical things that have been reformatted, this will get re-uploaded after the live stream in higher quality, so that it's not at like a 7,500 megabits per second bit rate. It's at like 40,000. So it will be re-uploaded in higher quality, which is something we previously didn't really have to do, but we're going to be doing it now. So that's it. Also, this show is available on iTunes and also Podbean if you want to listen to it on the go. And if you don't have YouTube Red, which is what I do for podcasts, is I just do that because then you can download the videos and listen to them with the screen turned off, which is really nice, but that's just me. Anyway, let's just get into some stuff. This is me rubbing my hands together if you can't see, or if you're listening. I'm rubbing my hands together in preparation because I'm getting psyched up. This is how I get psyched up. I'm ready. So, to begin, to begin, there's been a couple of fun announcements today that I felt we should at least address. And in the last week and a half or so, there's been a lot. So if you have something you want to discuss that maybe we haven't had the chance to talk about, let me know in the chat, and we can look at that. But as for this, what we'll start out with is this news, which I actually found pretty interesting and exciting, which is that Divinity Original Sin 2 is getting a PS4 and Xbox One release date, which is actually pretty awesome. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with this game, that's the game we were playing at the pre-show. This game is arguably one of the best games of 2017. I believe I gave it either second place or first place in the Indie Game of the Year for 2017, right neck and neck with Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. And it's just fan-freaking-tastic and phenomenal. And part of what makes it so good is that it accommodates for so many variables. So there's so many things taken into consideration when they were developing this that you can play it in any number of ways. And it really is an RPG. It is a role-playing game, first and foremost. And as a result, it's phenomenal. It really is. Now, the difficulty with that is that it's also very intimidating, and it can be overwhelming, which is the cost of having something massive thrown at you. And this is something, say what you will about Bethesda Game Studios, they do a very good job of this, is making a very large and what would otherwise be intimidating games seem very accessible. One of the brilliant things that Skyrim was able to do is make this massive game accessible and easy to get into, which is not something that you would normally see. With The Witcher 3, a lot of people get into that game, they buy it, they start going through it, and then they get totally just intimidated. It's so big, the dialogue is so intense, and there's so many gameplay systems to keep track of that it can often be intimidating. People shut it off, and they might enjoy that time they spent with it, but they kind of shut themselves off to it and move on. That was something that we actually saw with Divinity Original Sin 2, which was that people I'll adjust this chat. People were going through and having a good time, but the average player that played Divinity Original Sin 2 only played it for, I believe the average was like maybe 4 or 5 hours, which for this game is nothing. And it's interesting because those same people have very high opinions of the game, but they didn't play much of it. And I actually, when I first came across it, I think it was on Reddit that people were discussing this, because I read this back at release. So it might have changed by now, but nonetheless, this is what I saw around the time. And I was like, oh, well, I mean, I'm sure I'll get into it and I'll just start playing it. But the same kind of thing happened. I was playing this in 4-player co-op. This is the same game file and game save that I played with my girlfriend, my roommate, and another friend from way back in the day. And so we were playing through the game all on PC, on like laptops and stuff, because the game can accommodate for that. And we were going through and we were playing through the game together, and it was super fun because we had to keep each other accountable. My roommate grabbed and stole a broom. I've talked about this before. He stole a broom in the first large area of the game, and after a guard stopped him and inspected him, it like all hell broke loose, and they grabbed him and they took away the broom, and they said, what are you doing? You can't do that. And they started attacking us, and we had to go back to a previous save because the world had serious consequences for your actions, which is something that some people love and some people absolutely hate. So it's why I always say consequences in games, not always a good thing, not always a bad thing, but in general, it's a good thing because it means that what you're doing in the game is being responded to in general. So you can have consequences to your actions which are negative in that they will come after you for stealing a broom, or positive where you steal that broom for the sake of some other character in the game, and then as a result, you go through like all of these extra steps. So it's really interesting. Yeah, it must have been a very special broom. I mean, I know, like, if somebody came into my place, my little village, and started stealing my brooms, I'd probably be upset. I don't know if I'd kill the people as a result, but I would be probably a little upset. Galfoud says, when you get a chance, me and Liam need to discuss something important involving Discord. We can discuss it either on stream or on the Bowel Movement, which is the name of our Discord. Yeah, whatever. However important it is, if you think it's something that the general community could benefit from discussing and being a part of, then let's talk about it here. Otherwise, we can do it on Discord. That's fine. Speaking of which, if you aren't a member of the Discord, you should be. You should be. We have a good time. A lot of people have some really interesting conversations on there. The Sports Record GR says, well, I was thinking that actually all those really huge open world games, although they offer the chance to go anywhere in the end, I think they start to get tired to the player. Well, I think there is a real difficulty with that. You know, people have referred to it as Ubisoft syndrome, which sounds like some sort of STI or STD or something, but what it is practically that they just have this massive map, and then they sprinkle in collectibles, and they expect that to be what you want. They expect that to be kind of the end-all be-all of open world game design, where, well, what more do you want? We gave you a massive map with a ton of stuff there, and then we sprinkled in collectibles that you can run around the map and try to find. Well, the difficulty is that that's not inherently fun or interesting for anybody involved. So you can have an open world game, but if the world doesn't seem to be alive or breathing, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. And so with Divinity Original Sin 2, which Giorgio, that's the game we have in the background, with that game, the benefit of it was that every NPC, every character has some sort of personality, has some sort of use in the world, and most of them, like probably 95% of them, tie back into some sort of narrative within side quests or within the main quests, of which there's many branching. And that's the real impressive thing about Divinity Original Sin 2, is that they kind of do this thing where they blend the main quest and side quests together, where you'll forget if you're doing main quest or side quest, because they just start to seem very similar, and in a good way, where the quality is there and they still have effects tied together with each other. So hopefully that makes sense, where basically, like when you're playing Skyrim and you're going through that, for instance, because everybody's played Skyrim, so I can use it as an example. You're going through that, you're doing the main quest, and it's, you know, usually there's a ton of voice acting in it. Usually there's some big set piece involved. There's a bunch of things that clearly have higher production values. And as a result, you like separate it in your mind, like, oh, this is a main quest. But then when you go to a side quest, it becomes a trailing mission, or it's go grab this and deliver it here, or go do like this interaction, kill these guys and report back to me, those types of things. And so they sort of become very separated. They segregate themselves in a negative way. And I really do think that Divinity does a very good job of blending those two. Now, the obvious question is whether or not it's going to work well on consoles, Divinity specifically. I think it actually will. I don't think it's going to sell like record numbers, but the idea with Divinity Original Sin 2 that makes it really, really fun is that you can play it with like up to 3 friends, and you can just go through and have these super intense battles and work together, and that's going to be really fun, because I know a lot of people that would like to do this type of thing that maybe don't have gaming PCs or even laptops where they could run this game on it, and as a result they kind of missed out. So to be able to do that would be really, really fun. The only thing that would make it better is cross-platform play, so that somebody can be playing on a PS4 with a controller, and then I can also be playing on my gaming PC where I have a little more control over the menus, and we can be playing together. But as far as I'm aware, I think that's just at least what Bethesda's said with regards to cross-platform stuff with mods, and even like Fortnite with cross-platform play. It sounds like it's mainly just Sony that is holding that right now. As for why they're doing that, I'm not really sure, but that's just what's going on apparently. Let's see. With these, well, yeah, I think that says it. Divinity, just it's a solid game. If you haven't tried it, you totally should, because it really is a pretty fantastic game, and it's fun, and it's cheap, and it's made by an indie developer. So why wouldn't you want to support them? They do some great work. You can't be mad. Now the main story The main story with regards, I can't get this to go full screen. Why won't it go full screen? The main story when it comes to this episode, which we initially intended to discuss last week, was it doesn't want to go full screen for some reason. It was God of War specifically. And the reason we wanted to discuss God of War is because I'm telling you, I have a real hunch about this game that it is going to amaze a lot of people. I think it's going to really knock a lot of people's socks off. And I mean, of course, the hype is already way up there, and a lot of people are expecting some very, very good things from it. Being a Sony exclusive, being that they poured a ton of money into it, being that they've made a ton of comparisons to The Last of Us, for instance, that they've made a lot of comparisons to Resident Evil, and they're trying to take it up a notch. They really are. And I am ecstatic about it because there's a lot of potential. Now, for very stupid reasons, I can't show the gameplay that they've already announced and released on YouTube because they will try to take this show down if we do that, because I don't know why. I'm promoting your stuff. Let me talk about it. That's all I want to do. But what I will say is I've got a hunch when it comes to frickin' God of War, and I think that's going to be amazing. Now, the big thing is that they've said it will take anywhere from 25 to 35 hours-ish to finish the game. That's a long time, especially for a game like God of War in the past, and the fact that they're trying to rework it so it's a much more narrative experience is going to be very interesting, because we haven't seen a whole lot of the game, which I think says something about it, that we haven't seen any of these major boss battles or super cinematic moments with gigantic set pieces, and people are still incredibly hyped about it. And I think we will probably get like another trailer or something in the days leading up to the game's release, but I cannot wait for it. And I will be getting the game. We're going to be going through it, and you know, it's going to be a blast. It's going to be a blast. I cannot wait for that. And yes, we will be critiquing that. So prepare your bodies. Prepare your bodies. The next big thing. Let me pull this up here. Yeah, now full screen's working. Stupid computer. So Spider-Man for the PS4. This is the exclusive title for PS4 that is being developed by Insomniac. Or Insomnia. What is it? Friggin' Insomniac. Yeah, it is. I had it right the first time. It's the same studio that did Ratchet and Clank and Sunset Overdrive, and they've swapped over to the Sony side of things, and they've been working on this Spider-Man game for several years. And let's just say there's a lot of hype around this title. There's a lot of expectation, shall we say, especially because the last couple of Spider-Man games, like the Amazing Spider-Man titles, were kind of garbage. They really weren't very good at all, and they averaged like 6 out of 10, 5 out of 10. Like, they just were not good. And so there's a lot riding on this, and Sony certainly has the potential, and Insomniac has the potential to do something really cool here. This part doesn't really make sense to me, this screenshot right here, because he's holding the phone upside down. If you can see that frickin' stuff right there. Maybe it's because he's talking, like face chatting to MJ, and he wants her to see that he's upside down. But why would he care about that? Why wouldn't he just flip the phone the right side up for him so he could look at it normally, instead of seeing her as upside down and him as upside down? Plot hole. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, but it's coming out September 7th. It's a little worrisome for me because they've already announced all of these extra packs, and like right here on the first major advertising and merchandising thing that they've sent out, they were already talking about Spidey suit packs and the drone gadget that you can get ahead of time, and you get the Spider-Man PS4 avatar, the theme, and 5 extra skill points, which you can see down here on the bottom of this poster. They're saying that if you pre-order the game or get the You know, this is all pre-order. So if you pre-order the game, you start with 5 extra skill points, which is already like, that's not great. That's not great. Now on the other side, God of War is going to not have any microtransactions. Cory Barlog already has stated that it's not going to have any microtransactions whatsoever. Now, pre-order bonuses, I'm not actually sure about. I think you do get like 1 outfit if you pre-order the game, but it's cosmetic, and there's no microtransactions whatsoever, which is very comforting, and I think really says something good about where we're going. Now, microtransactions within Spider-Man, I'm not necessarily saying that Spider-Man has pre-order bonuses. I don't think it necessarily does. Well, let's just read this. So this is coming from, where are we? Tech Games Radar. So coming from Games Radar, it says, quote, Spider-Man PS4 is being released in several different flavors. First of all, there's the normal edition with for $60 and the digital deluxe version for $80, which comes with 3 DLC chapters, new missions, costumes, and villains. Presumably those villains are part of the new chapters, because it'd be a bit weird if they were just wandering around the place. And if you want to crank up and spend $150, you can get the collector's edition, which comprises all of the above, alongside an art book, steel case, and a statue of Spidey perching upon something. Something has, quote, the something has yet to be revealed, probably due to it being a spoiler, as have the 2 special DLC suits. Maybe wait a bit to find out, just in case it's something really embarrassing. I don't really understand. Now, this is another interesting thing. They're being very coy about all of this. Like, they won't even say where Peter Parker is working at the time of the game, which is really interesting, because like you think that would be a fairly straightforward thing, where they're just like, oh yeah, he's working at Oscorp or whatever. I almost said Osborne. Working at Oscorp, and that's all they've got. He gets access to the tech and blah, blah, blah. Like, that's what you would expect them to do. But no, instead of that, they are keeping it under wraps, and it's not really clear. Like, what could he possibly be standing on that would be a spoiler to the point where they don't want to talk about it? I'm not sure. Now, they said their plan is to reveal what he's standing on in summer of 2018, which makes me think that at E3 they're going to reveal some more story details, and maybe at that point they can talk about it. But we should be able to play this and be okay. I'll mute it. But as you can see, like, the game is beautiful. And no, it's not coffee. It's like a leftover smoothie. I'm not that cool anymore. But it's very good for my throat. It's good for my throat. I'm talking about drinking. I'm not just rambling. Anyway, it does seem really interesting. The original 2017 E3 gameplay we saw was very, very quick time event heavy. Apparently, the people that have played the game, or at least gotten a chance to play some of it, said that the quick time events are almost non-existent, or at least there's only a couple, and it's only in times when there's really nothing else that they could have done to keep it interactive. So it seems really interesting. And there's some elements of this, like Spider-Man games and superhero games are always really difficult. And that's why you have to really appreciate what these companies are doing, because like, you're trying to set this very unrealistic thing in a realistic setting and make it feel realistic as though it could actually happen, which is not an easy feat to do, because that's balancing 2 different sides of the brain. It's the imaginative side of your brain, and then it's also the more factual and realism obsessed side of your brain. So you are constantly kind of fighting yourself on trying to figure out what looks right or what looks good. Where, like, this fight sequence, for instance, it's intriguing, it's interesting, and he's jumping around, he's doing his thing, fighting the bad guys. But are those movements and like these animations, they aren't flowing together perfectly well. He is snapping between animations, which makes it feel a little bit more punchy. If you're not familiar with that technique in animation, it's something that they really pushed in The Last of Us in the melee combat, where like you'll have one animation where, like, you know, Joel is running, for instance, and then an animation where he goes and has to raise a 2x4, for instance, and hit somebody over the head with it. And he'll do that See what I mean? He's holding the phone upside down. Why does he need to do that? It doesn't make sense. It's just for you, the viewer. It bugs me. Anyway, but he takes the 2x4, he swings it down, and they snap the animations so that they go right there. And it does feel nice and punchy. Point is that that's a technique that is much more gamey, quote unquote, and is much more geared towards the feel of things. Now, I'm just fine with that. Spider-Man 2, one of the games that formed my childhood, was a very gamey game. The difficulty is when you try to aim for realism, you got to balance that out very carefully, because it can get messy. It can get messy. But from what I've seen so far, it looks like they're doing a very good job. And to be honest, I can't wait because this looks fantastic. So initially I was very standoffish towards this game, not really convinced it was going to be anything special or interesting, and then after the exclusive coverage that I believe Game Informer has been doing, I'm honestly intrigued. I really am interested, and I think that they might be onto something potentially awesome. You never know. What do you guys think? Are you guys pumped for it? I'm not sure. Did I ever play Sunset Overdrive? Asks Robust Rouge. I did not play Sunset Overdrive. I should try it though, especially getting ready for this, because I believe it was an Xbox exclusive. I want to say like a launch exclusive back in like 2013, 2014. So I should try it. I should give it a shot. I'm not sure if it's on PC though. If it is, like, I'll do it right now, but I don't think it is. Let's see. The Sports Record GR says, personally, gonna wait for the first reviews. I pre-order only in games I know they will be great, although don't forget that in September we will also get Shadow of Tomb Raider. Shadow of the Tomb Raider is also a really interesting thing. Let's talk about that for a second. So Shadow of the Tomb Raider was announced, and then it seems like everybody's just moved on from it. So it was highly speculated, of course, as you would kind of expect, that there was going to be a follow-up or like some sort of final element to the trilogy. Yeah, I don't need ads. I'm okay. There we go. So they announced it, and then it seems like nobody's talking about it. Now, they said apparently like they're just announcing the announcement because they're going to have to readjust, and they will be releasing it, but they wanted to announce the announcement because like it was already leaking and they just wanted to get it done with, at least get people talking about it, especially with the movie having come out. So like this. Not actual gameplay. They put that there. I'm glad they put that little distinguisher because a lot of fanboys would have gotten really hyped. But these games are always kind of tough because Uncharted did a very good job of doing this, because Uncharted is like super fun. It's kind of cartoony. It's just like, it just makes you feel good. It just makes you feel good. You just are going through everything, having a good time, and that's, you know, some jokes are being cracked, and it's just a good time in general. And then there's some serious moments, but it looks incredible. It feels great, and it's got that Naughty Dog polish to it. Tomb Raider, I've never been a crazy big fan of it, just because they try to aim at some larger and deeper gameplay mechanics, which is good. I appreciate that, but the story has never really like sucked me in the same way that like a Naughty Dog title can. All Naughty Dog titles except for The Lost Legacy, which was a dumpster fire. So speaking of which, I kind of want to do a critique of The Lost Legacy just so I can have time to rant against it, but I don't know. I don't know if the interest is even there. It seems like everybody's already forgotten about the game that was initially supposed to be a DLC expansion, but now it's apparently not a DLC expansion. It was released as a standalone title. I don't know. I just wish they would have canceled it and just focused on what everyone actually wanted, which was, of course, The Last of Us Part 2. So, yeah. Anyway, so that's a big thing. That'll be interesting to see where that goes. Another big thing that, of course, everybody's talking about, which I feel we should address, is, if I swap to here, Starfield, which, to be honest, I'm not really sold on the idea that it even exists in the way that a lot of people are suggesting it exists, which allow me to clarify. So as they say on this article on Fextra Life or Extra Life, no, it's Fextra Life. Quote, back in 2013, Bethesda trademarked the name Starfield. This trademark was renewed in 2016. So we can surmise that the game that they've been working on for years now is Starfield. And, the trademark is fairly straightforward. It covers all sorts of things like, games, entertainment, and all manner of things like that. Now, they also mentioned allegedly that in 2017, a 4chan user who allegedly worked at Bethesda talked about the game a little bit. So they say, quote, in 2017, somebody posted on 4chan using an account which was named Sululard. They claimed to be a Bethesda employee and posted a lot of information regarding upcoming projects, including this little ditty. Hopefully it scales. Yeah. So what they say right here is, quote, they want it to be a to scale version of a post-apocalyptic New York City and some surrounding areas, and want to make the rumor of it being blown up simply being a myth. They're taking the criticism about Fallout 4 seriously and plan to reintroduce the skill system, but in a more Skyrim-esque fashion as well. The game will still feature more action-based combat, but they are revamping the dialogue system to be more like New Vegas, as well as removing the voiced protagonist. They're debating whether to go the cliche route of starting a character off in a vault or starting you off more similar to a blank slate character like New Vegas, which would allow you to choose more arbitrary characteristics like being a ghoul, android, etc. The game will feature augmentations as well as dystopian cyberpunk menicity in a dome which was untouched by the war. They originally wanted that to be in Fallout 4, but never got around to it. He also posted some information about Starfield in response to the questions he received afterwards. So with regards to companions, he says there will be roughly 12 companions that you can go with. The game will not limit the amount of people you can romance, just like in Fallout 4, meaning you can have your harem of alien waifus, if that is your desire. The game will also feature alien prostitutes. I'm not sure where you heard something, but the game will feature 5 separate quest lines based on which faction you join. One quest line is reserved for loners, if you don't like any of the factions and want to tackle what's going on your own. Okay, so all this seems relatively interesting. Okay, so do tell me some more. He goes on to say that Fallout 4 VR and Skyrim VR and Starfield would be revealed at E3 2017. He was right about Fallout 4 VR and Skyrim VR, but was wrong about Starfield. In addition to this, Sululard posted some approximate release dates for Bethesda's next few games, and these include 2 Elder Scrolls title, and it takes us all the way to 2030 when Elder Scrolls 7 will apparently be released. So basically they say Starfield 2017, Game of Thrones project in 2020, The Elder Scrolls 6 in 2023, a Fallout project in 2025, and The Elder Scrolls 7 in 2030. Okay, interesting, but they go on. His replies were all rather detailed, but we don't know that they're necessarily got the ring of truth to them. It sounds more like a fan's wish list for a game based on what they've already played. It sounds too similar, too safe an approach for Bethesda to take. Having said that, could it be true? Sure. If so, something, he just goes on to rant a little bit more about it. So this is pretty much all we've got at the moment, is a trademark, which is very real. Starfield has been named. And then this user that claims to be a Bethesda employee. I think he claimed to be like a game tester, like a play test somebody or other. So he didn't have a ton of in-depth information about the individual processes, but just about like the broad strokes of what they're trying to do. And it seems interesting. Like, it seems very possible, certainly, that this is where it could be going. And the one element, like a lot of people say, well, oh, like he didn't freaking talk about, sorry, this thing just popped up. He didn't friggin' talk about how E3 didn't actually show Starfield, and because E3 didn't show Starfield, clearly everything he said was false. Well, that's not necessarily true. Like, to be honest, I actually believe that Bethesda did intend on showing off something at E3, and then something happened that was caught up in the middle of things that couldn't work, which would make sense with how laughably terrible that E3 conference was on Bethesda's part, because it really was laughably horrible. Like, it was 40 minutes long, and like when it ended, I honestly sat back and I was waiting for the actual announcements to come, and nothing ever came, and it was just there. So making these types of predictions are always tough in the gaming industry because any number of things can happen. You know, back, if you watch the making of, I want to say Oblivion, I want to say it was, they actually are headed to E3 to show off the game for the first time, and they have these PCs they've been doing all of the testing on, and they have like 3 of these PCs, and they have very specific hardware, very specific things built into them, and they like throw the game on there, and instead of just shipping it off, at one point apparently they had to throw it on a plane and like fly it out to E3 because they couldn't trust the mail service to get it there safely or on time. So it's this crazy complicated thing which you don't really think of or think about as the consumer, that when you're dealing with a very, very delicate demo that maybe you would need to like only have a few systems that you could do it on. And nowadays it's probably much more open, especially if you're doing a console demo, but you never know. Like, so many variables go into this where they honestly could have, like, working up to the E3 announcement and the E3 reveal, they honestly could have looked at it and said, okay, we've got this big issue to fix. We can do that in the week leading up to E3. We can fix that and then move on. And then in the process of fixing that, they break a bunch of other stuff. And then as a result, like, it just breaks completely. So they say, okay, well, we just can't reveal anything. So that extra 20 minutes we were going to spend talking about this game, we need to hold off on it. We will just focus on polish a little bit more. We got the money to do it, and we'll reveal it later. It sounds ridiculous, but it certainly could have happened, especially coming from Bethesda, a company which is not EA, which is all it really takes to not shove these types of things out, which is really interesting. Another interesting thing that did pop up. Let me go here. Another interesting thing that did pop up in the last week and a half was the discussion around a follow-up to the PlayStation 4. There's a lot of talk going on about a potential PlayStation 5 being released as soon as late this year or late next, or early to mid 2019, which is intriguing and interesting. Several companies such as CD Projekt Red have said that the game is like these games have been built in a way that takes into consideration and will scale and play well with the next generation of consoles, which is really interesting. So it's very likely that whatever the next generation of consoles have already been sent out in terms of dev kits to developers to try and to start messing with. And I think, like The Last of Us Part 2, there's strong reason to believe that is possibly going to run off of next generation hardware to make it look like that and run like it does. So that I would believe, in terms of the downsides and the reasons maybe not to consider this, is when we look at like the overall goal for PlayStation, it's to sell as many consoles as possible with as many games going out as possible. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it, which is exactly what the Sports Recorder GR says. if we think this like Sony, why do that? PS4 sells worldwide amazingly well, which is true. And that's the one big negative and downside to the argument that maybe they are working on another console that's going to be released soon, is that it's not broken. So you don't need to fix it. In 2006, like 2005, 2006, it was understandable why like Xbox was rushing out trying to get the 360 up off the ground because PS2 was killing it. And then in 2013, it made sense why Sony was pushing out the PS4, making these ads where they were demonstrating how easy it was to trade games with each other. Because remember, initially, the Xbox One, initially you weren't going to be able to trade games or even buy used games. Initially, it looked like you would only get one game to play, which is very, very interesting. So I don't know. I'm intrigued. Oh, what's this? So Jake's Larzul says, "Hey Luke Boo, I loved Lost Legacy. It had an extreme amount of polish, and the game environments were beautiful and unique. Also, I appreciate the craft and creativity you put into your videos." Thank you. Now I feel terrible about trashing it, right? Well, thank you, Jake's. First of all, thank you for the donation. I really do appreciate that. Secondly, yeah, I mean, with all Naughty Dog titles, there's this delicate balance of what makes them good and what makes them unique, what makes them special. And for me, it's all about the characters. It's all about the relationships that are built up in them. Like, I care about Nathan Drake because of his relationships to Sully, to I mean, literally everybody in the game. So that's what kind of keeps you going. That's what keeps you coming back and keep pushing through the story, because you want to see what happens between him and Sam. You want to see what happens between him and all of these different characters that are interacting. The issue with Lost Legacy for me was that I couldn't get into Nadine, and Chloe I never was really into, because the entire thing was just, look at me, I'm super serious, I'm a badass, which, whether it's a girl or a boy or a chicken or a duck, like, it doesn't matter. If that's what we're pushing, it's going to natively be uninteresting to me, which is unfortunate. But I mean, I'm up for going through it and doing a critique on it and trying to stay as open-minded as possible, certainly. So who knows, that might happen. It'll be after God of War and after Dishonored, but that likely will happen. So thank you, Jakes. Howler's Moon, will you go over Hellblade news? What or which Hellblade news, to which are you referring? I would love to know. I'd love to know. Thank you, Retro or Die, watching your Red Dead video, and it's great. Thank you. Thank you. I do appreciate that. Nadine is easy on the eyes, but not much else is going on with her character. That's the difficulty, is that she kind of... I don't know, there's just not a lot of depth built into that I care about. Another game that's going to be interesting to see how it kind of develops. Oh, a Hellblade coming to Xbox? Yes, Hellblade coming to Xbox One is going to be really interesting. I am very interested in that. And I'm glad Xbox players are going to get a chance to play it, because it really is a fantastic game. It really, really is. And it's, I mean... absolutely. You got to give it a chance. You got to give it a chance. Let's see. The sports recorder. I think we need new, fresh franchises coming from every company. How more is the franchise milking going to last? Or how much more is the franchise milking going to last? We need new ideas, new IPs, I think. Well, that's one of the interesting things about Bethesda. I'm glad they're branching out. You know, I love Elder Scrolls. I love Fallout as much as the next guy. But the fact that they're going to certainly, like, definitively do something different, do something that they haven't done before, I'm all for that. And I think it could potentially help avoid a lot of the sort of crazy hype to be sorted out. Same thing with CDPR, where they're getting rid of, or not getting rid of, but they're moving on from The Witcher for now, at least. And they're going back and looking at Cyberpunk, which is going to be very interesting. And either way, I think we're going to see a lot at E3 this year. I really do think it's going to be the best E3 in quite a while. So I cannot wait for that. Yeah, Anthony. Yeah, I think Cyberpunk's coming to E3. I don't have much doubt in my mind. I don't know who's going to show it off. Who knows? Maybe if they've got new consoles to show off, we'll see that. But I do think that there's going to be something significant there. Far Cry 5, I haven't played through it yet, no. Mainly just time's sake, so I'm preparing for several different critiques. Yeah, no, I'm just busy, and it's all about prioritization. And I did that poll for the community on YouTube. So, if you go to my channel and go to the community tab, you can see that poll asking people what they wanted to see most. And Red Dead Redemption 1 first and foremost. So, of course, that came out first. And then the other videos that people have also wanted to see are in the queue as well. So it just takes time. I might get around to it. But my community in general doesn't seem like they're super interested in a Far Cry 5 analysis or anything, which, if you're not interested, it's fine. It's fine. Let's see. What do you think of Dark Souls Remastered? I'm glad they're getting around to it. I think it'll be good. I'm not sure how it'll work in handheld mode. I don't think it will. But with a Nintendo Pro controller, I think it could be really fun. I think it could. I just don't think it's a game for little Joy-Cons. I just can't picture it being a great fit. Let's see. What did I skip past? I skipped past a couple things. Let's see. What do you think about Microsoft having an ace or two up their sleeve for E3? I strongly believe they will have a couple of exclusives that will blow everyone away. Real system sellers. I actually probably would disagree with you. I don't foresee anything particularly amazing on its way on Xbox's side. And that's mainly just because they just seem to not care. That's the issue. They just seem to not care about freaking much of anything, and that's too bad that they don't. But they are not super concerned with exclusives, which is a good thing. I'm glad they're not going crazy over exclusives. But on the other side, I kind of wish that there were more big items that they were going for, because I would like that. I think it could really help the company if they did. So I don't know. I'm intrigued, but I'm not sold. I don't think they've got anything crazy up their sleeves. I think they're going to look at some games that we've heard about before, we're going to talk about before, but they'll probably announce some extra expansions and DLC for frickin' Sea of Thieves, but I don't foresee anything crazy happening. I wish it were, and I'd like to be surprised, but I'm not sure. You look like the cool older brother of Drake Bell. I don't know who Drake Bell is. Who is Drake Bell? He's an actor. I don't know. Drake and Josh, is that who? I don't know. Thank you, I suppose. Thank you. Let's see. Where is it? Where is it? Who's Drake Bell? Yeah, I'm sorry. Drake from Drake and Josh. I'm the worst, guys. I'm terrible. I'm like the devil. I'm the devil. Another game. Detroit. Become Human. Likely the only good thing to come out of Detroit in quite a while. I am actually intrigued by this. I think it could be a really interesting title that comes, because they're handling very mature content, which is not something that many game developers are doing. They're talking about some serious stuff here, which I'm honestly kind of excited to see how they handle it. It's not clear exactly how it'll work out, but it's coming in May, so there's not much time for them to restructure it. Whatever it's going to be really interesting. But I don't know. I think it's going to primarily be addressing the topic of what defines humanity, what defines a living creature, and whether or not at what point that becomes, I suppose, irrelevant. At what point does their humanity just like get assigned to them, and do they earn it? So it's going to be interesting because they deal with a lot of deep moral questions. Perhaps not super deep because they all seem to be fairly black and white, but it's a matter of how you deal with those difficult questions that I think is going to be really interesting. So, oh no, he got shot in the face and he has blue blood. Oh no. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this develops. But we haven't seen much talk about it because it looks as though they're focusing much more on God of War. But right after God of War comes out, you'd better believe that they're going to be doubling down on Detroit Become Human and pushing that, because it comes out on May 25th, unless it gets like delayed for whatever reason, which might happen, but I don't really foresee that happening, because you'd think if it was going to be, it would have already happened. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Yeah. I am yawny today. I don't know what happened. Ugh. I don't know what happened. Yeah, Drake, like Disney Channel, I never really watched anything. I watched a lot of like Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. I watched a lot of that. I watched a lot of, what else did I watch? Kids Next Door, Codename Kids Next Door. Was a big fan of that. Things like that. I had usually like 2 or 3 shows I was really into, and that's it. Phineas and Ferb we were into for a while. But even still, that show's hilarious. I freaking love that show. I have a feeling Days Gone will be overhyped and end up being disappointing. I pray that doesn't happen. It's getting dangerously close to that point. I actually agree with you. I think it's the type of game that is very easily overhyped, and as a result might get blown way out of proportion. And it's just because it's a zombie game. Like zombie games, there's a lot of hype and expectation around them. I'm glad they haven't been showing it off constantly, because at least then there's room for them to be a little more, like, to mess with it a little bit more and have more time with it. But yeah. Sorry, excuse me. My goodness. Well, that's it. Yeah, exactly, Ryan Lovelace. Do you think The Last of Us Part 2 will overshadow Days Gone? Well, that's the difficulty, is that whether you like it or not, they're both zombie games, like, or quote-unquote infected games. But at the end of the day, they're still in the same kind of category in most consumers' minds. And sure, they're aimed at slightly different audiences. One is a more narrative audience. The other seems to be a more run and gun audience. But at the end of the day, they're aiming for the same market. And when you do that, there's always going to be some bleed. And so they got to space it out, which is why, like, if The Last of Us Part 2 is coming out in 2019, I think you got to separate it by, like, as close to a year as you can, whether you like it or not. Like, I think if you do Days Gone in early 2019, okay, that'll work. And you do The Last of Us Part 2 in late 2019, like around December, okay, do that. But if they try to do like a close release, it's not going to work. Yeah, exactly. Days Gone got delayed, but I mean, in terms of the actual release, as to when it's coming, I'm not sure how that'll work out. I'm not sure. State of Decay 2, yeah, it's State of Decay. I haven't heard much about that recently, but I'm excited to see what happens. When does State of Decay 2 release? State of Decay 2. May 22nd. Within 3 days of Detroit Become Human. That's dangerous. Getting ready for summer. Distinguished noobs, what is your greatest fear for Red Dead Redemption 2? I mainly just that like Rockstar, they haven't released something since Grand Theft Auto 5, and as a result, it is there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of expectation, and I'm like really interested and intrigued to see what they do with it, because it's not easy. It's not freaking easy to go from Grand Theft Auto 5, one of the most successful games of all time, to a follow-up to another game which many people thought was one of the best games ever made. So it's a tough thing they're trying to do and that they have to balance, and I applaud them for trying to do it. but it's going to be real tough. But they've done it before. They have managed hype and expectation enough. I really do believe it has to do with the way that they balance out their delays, where they push games back after releasing them or announcing them, and they push it back, push it back, push it back. So I do think there is the potential for that, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they play it. I'm sorry. My goodness, I got to get my act together. Let's see. Oh, current thoughts on Vampire. Yeah, Vampire is interesting. I'm intrigued by Vampire, but they haven't given me much reason to be hyped about it. Those of you not familiar, Vampire, I did a video on it way back in the day because I was intrigued. Vampire with a Y. Vampire. It's pushed back to June 5th of 2018, which is interesting because that's like pre-E3. You'd think that they'd push it back to just after and hype it up at E3, but regardless, I don't know why they do that. That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. But it's developed by Don't Nod, which are the same people that did whatever it's called, Life is Strange, and so they certainly have the potential for doing something really interesting. But mainly, like, this game was primarily hyped in the summer of 2016, and not much has been heard ever since then. Like, look at this. Even in my, like, when I'm watching the video, my video on it, if you look at this, my video on it comes up as recommended, which is always funny. I don't know why. I always think it's funny when YouTube recommends my own videos to me. But, I mean, it's intriguing. It certainly is interesting, and it's coming out. It's set in the outbreak right after the Spanish flu, which was terrible and awful, but it's developed by Don't Nod, so you can expect it to be very, very narrative with interesting characters potentially, but the lip syncing you can also rely on being utterly horrendous. So I don't know, but it does seem that there are some branching dialogue options, which is interesting. But usually, like, Life is Strange, I suppose this is a spoiler, so I'll say that now. Spoiler for Life is Strange. It basically just has two endings. Like, you can go through the whole game doing all of these different things, branching every which way, and it does a good job. So it does branch out, but they all come back into one of two options at the very end of the game. So effectively, all of your decisions prior to that was just gone. Like, it didn't matter. Which I guess you could say is a statement on life and existence itself, but really, like, it was just, I think it was, excuse me, I think it was just a kind of get out of jail free card. I think it was just them bailing. But this game looks really cool, looks really interesting, and I think the potential certainly is there because you're basically playing as a vampire, as you would expect from the name, and you can get more powerful by drinking and living off of the people in this town, the city, or you can go through and try to be much more moral about it, staying weaker but being more virtuous and moral. So you got to constantly be balancing that, and that's intriguing for me at the very least. But we haven't heard much about it, which maybe they're just preparing to announce more stuff in the weeks and months to come, but we don't really know much after that, which is unfortunate, which is truly unfortunate because I'd like to hear more about it. I think the potential is certainly there. Galfoud asks, did you hear that when State of Decay got remastered, they upped all the textures, and apparently a level designer hid low poly penises in the original game? They had to patch the remaster. Look it up. No way. That's amazing. That is amazing. It's like, game developers are very mature. They take their work very, very seriously, and we just are focused on quality. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'd give that guy a bonus. Okay, not really, but still, that's kind of hilarious. That's kind of hilarious. Let's do that. Yeah, Robust Rouge, don't worry. He's got a skedaddle. Thank you for coming out. We're about to wrap up with the final flush, so no worries there. So with that, you know what time it is. It is time for define a flush. So what that means, if you haven't watched the show before, basically we spend this last little bit. Let me turn off the chat real quick. We spend this last little bit to effectively go through and put some funny little stuff in the chat. I read through it. If I crack up while going through it, I lose. And if I don't, then you lose. And we go about our business. And then we celebrate with an honorary video of usually some sort of dramatic nature, which is what we do. So we're gonna do this. Let me prep this. So go ahead and put those funny things in there if you've got them. But let's make this happen, Mr. Captain. Let's there we go. This okay. That'll do. I just found it. Don't worry. Fear not. Okay. And then let me make sure that our final flush setup is correct. I do believe that'll work just fine. Okay, so if everyone's ready, let me go back up. Okay. Right here, we'll go to the final flush. I do believe that works. Okay, so some people had to leave because we hit the hour mark right on the nose, so we'll try to wrap through this quickly. I'll go for a quick run, and then we'll go for it. Okay, here we go. When Spider-Man does his head fill and swell with blood. Excuse me, I just burped and hiccuped at the same time. What the hell was that? That was an experience. Holy crap, I wasn't ready for that. Oh, let me get rid of the chat so I don't read ahead. That was an experience. I'm sorry. Wow. Holy crap. My humor is so dark it picks cotton. Oh no, that's bad. Why was the guitar teacher arrested for fingering a minor? That's pretty good. A guy met a woman, asked her name. She said, "My name is Jessica. What's yours?" He said, "Richard, but my friends call me Dick." She asked me, "How do you get a dick from Richard?" "You ask nicely." Clever. For those of you not from English-speaking countries, for whatever reason, Dick is like a short name for Richard. So if your name is Richard, a common nickname is Dick, which doesn't really make sense, but apparently that's a thing. Feminists, all men are pigs. Also feminists, women are equal to men in every way. Yeah, they didn't think that one through. The Last of Us, the last bus, the last bust. Yes. Where are average things manufactured satisfactory? Little baby's ice cream. Oh, that's bad. I would like to state for the record that I am not, nor have I ever been, a racist, but who knows what the future holds. Yeah, you just got to cover your bases, right? You just got to cover everything. Yeah, you can never be too careful. Okay, I don't know. I don't know who won that one. I'm sorry. I don't know who won that, but whoever did, congratulations. I think I cracked up myself, which was too bad. Here we go. Let's play the final countdown right here. Enjoy. The one, the only, Alex Jones.
I'm a pioneer. I'm an explorer. I'm a human. And I'm coming.
This is actually from InfoWars.
Fraud, which put down a...
behind.
I didn't realize.
It was the second presidential debate, and he was looming behind me. 2 days before, the world heard him brag about groping women. Now we were on a small stage, and no matter where I walked, he followed me closely, staring at me, making faces. It was incredibly uncomfortable. He was literally breathing down my neck. My skin crawled. It was one of those moments where you wish you could hit pause and ask everyone watching, well, What would you do? I kept my cool, aided by a lifetime of dealing with difficult men trying to throw me off. I did, however, grip the microphone extra hard.
Absolutely hilarious. Love the stuff Mike and his team come up with. He'll be hosting the 4th hour, by the way, today.
I didn't realize that was an actual Alex Jones video. Well, there you go. There you go. That was, I believe, an excerpt from her book. I actually believe that's what that was, which is kind of hilarious because when you put a dancing frog behind her, it gets a whole new life, which is all you can really expect. Mike the Liar says he just finished The Witcher 3. It's one of the best gaming and story I've ever experienced. I'm glad you enjoyed it, my friend. If you haven't played the DLC, play the DLC. You owe yourself that much. It is fantastic, and you will not be disappointed, I guarantee you. Especially Hearts of Stone. It is fantastic. And Blood and Wine is basically a whole new game. So if you need another 25-ish hours of The Witcher 3 that are all fresh and new, go ahead and give that a shot because that's basically what it does. So with all that said, thank you guys for coming out. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead, leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for 50,000 subscribers. I'm so thankful to every single one of you who's helped make it happen. And we've only got more fun stuff on the way. So buckle down. We're just getting started. Thank you all for watching. I love you all. Peace out. I'll see you next time, my friends. Peace out. Grumbly, 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 dramatic voice, dramatic voice.